We have some more good news for Donald Trump. His luck just keeps improving here. In taking up Trump's immunity claim, the Supreme Court bolstered his delay strategy by scheduling a hearing for late April on the former president's assertion that he cannot be prosecuted for his actions in office. The justices increased the chances that he will not face trial by Election Day. It's a beautiful thing. Everything's working out great. The Supreme Court, they say I can kill whoever I want. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Over there.
You over there.
Dead. Dead.
Exactly.
It's like I saw that movie once, Caligula. I liked it. I liked it. He would just say, hey, you, get in the ground.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a wonderful thing. Who knew? Who knew you could do it that way? I wish I knew that the first time.
Maybe I'll make my horse a general. That was the other thing he did. I liked that movie.
Exactly. The Supreme Court that former President Donald J. Trump helped to shape, yes, as is his role as president, tossed him a legal lifeline on Wednesday night, making a choice that substantially aided his efforts to delay his federal trial on charges of plotting to overturn the 2020 election. By deciding to take up Mr. Trump's claim that presidents enjoy almost total immunity from prosecution for any official action while in office, a legal theory rejected by two lower courts and one that few experts think has any basis in the Constitution, the justices brought the former president at least several months before a trial on the election interference charges can start. It is not out of the question that Mr. Trump could still face a jury in the case in federal district court in Washington before Election Day. At this point, the legal calendar suggests that if the justices issue a ruling by the end of the Supreme Court's term in June and find that Mr. Trump is not immune from prosecution, the trial could still start by late September or October. But with each delay, the odds increase that voters will not get a chance to hear the evidence that Mr. Trump sought to subvert the last election before they decide whether to back him in the current one. If Mr. Trump is successful in delaying the trial until after Election Day and he wins, he could use the powers of his office to seek to dismiss the election interference indictment altogether. Moreover, Justice Department policy precludes prosecuting a sitting president, meaning that once sworn in, he could likely have any federal trial he is facing postponed until after he left office. So that's obviously a huge break for him because if he could get the trial postponed until after November, then that's not an obstacle to his running this campaign. The mood was not bright on MSNBC in response to this news. Here's Rachel Maddow on a panel looking literally on the verge of tears.
Hi, my good friends Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell,
she often does.
Host of the Rachel Maddow Show and The Last Word right here on MSNBC.
It's
Rachel,
the Basset Hound eyes.
I will say something.
Yes.
I am mad at myself for how surprised I was. I was mad at myself as the time went by, the 2.5 weeks. I think a lot of people thought, and this was with informed speculation by people I respect, people who've clerked on the court, people who've been around the court, studied the court, know the court. There is no way they could take 2.5 weeks only then to say we're taking the case 7 weeks from now. What was your reaction to what you heard?
I mean, I don't think you should be mad at yourself. I don't think you should be embarrassed. I think everybody sort of thought that was the only kind of decent explanation for how long they were taking, that they were going to not take up the case, that maybe Samuel Alito or one of the other real MAGA judges was going to be really mad about it, was going to write an angry dissent, was biding for as much time as he could because this was his last chance to insert delay, which of course is what Trump wants. I think that was, you know, if you think about the court as the Supreme Court of the United States and a rational actor and a decent one, that was a reasonable supposition, and it just turns out they're not that. And Chris, I feel you in terms of the emotion that you're bringing to this right now, and the sort of sense of urgency with which you're underscoring what this means.
Horrible.
It's true. There just isn't any way around it. And I feel like for people who haven't been following this, if you want to know why there's a hair on fire reaction to this, if you haven't been following every interstitial, incremental bit of progress here, the important question here is not whether the Supreme Court is going to decide that Donald Trump and all presidents are immune from prosecution for things they commit, crimes they committed while they were president. I mean, it would be fully insane for them to actually side with Trump here, right? Remember, this is the case where Trump's lawyer was asked by Judge Florence Pan in the appeals court, are you telling me that this guy that a president could order the assassination of his political rivals and there could be no prosecution for that? That would be okay. We'd have to let that go. Not
well,
only
that's
for
what
the
they
duration
say.
of his...
I mean, that's what they're saying. I mean, that's the Supreme Court. They get to make they get to decide. You know, who are you? Who are you? What do you know? Who are you to say who I can kill and can't kill?
I believe in the Constitution.
I believe in the Constitution. I'm a man of the law. Yes, this is a nation of laws, we'll have you know. And the law says I get to do whatever I want because I'm the president.
If I want to round up everybody on this panel, I can do that.
I can do that. Yeah. So better watch your mouth.
I'd be careful. You might want to invest in a red hat.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And see, for the duration of his life, that would be okay. And Trump's lawyers are basically like, yeah. So the idea that they're going to side with him on immunity is unthinkable and also beside the point. The conclusion that we can arrive at now based on what they have done without having to wait for the ruling is that they are ensuring that Trump will not face trial. And when they inevitably rule that presidents aren't immune from prosecution after they leave office, what that will tell Donald Trump, if by then he is president, is that he can never leave the office of the presidency.
Right.
And if he is voted out in 2028, he cannot leave office, and he is willing to he is welcome to commit any crimes he wants to, as long as he is still president, in order to ignore the result of that election and stay in power for life, because otherwise he's going to go to prison when he gets out. That is the way this is going to go unless the country votes Trump out, votes for Biden and against Trump in November.
And they're really afraid that it's going to be up to the people to vote against Trump. That's what they really are like, oh my God, now we're going to actually have to beat him in an election. What a threat to democracy that is, that we're actually going to have to win an election. Number one. Number two, I just have to unpack a little bit of what she said there, because Rachel Maddow, despite having this reputation, she's a Rhodes Scholar, a very intelligent person, as we know from her years of covering Russiagate, she will spin the most insane and unhinged conspiracy theories you've ever heard, yet she never gets called a conspiracy theorist. So what she's saying here, what she just said there...
She, with one exception... When Russiagate blew up, a lot of journalists decided to try to scapegoat her for the failure of the entire industry. That was the only time you ever saw mainstream media criticize Rachel Maddow. There was like a scathing New York Times piece that basically called her a Glenn Beck. I don't know if they used those exact words, but it really went right up to that. Like, you know, she owes everyone an apology. That was the only time I ever saw her get called out. And it was, I read it as media self-interest. They want to go, Rachel made us do it. Rachel made us do it.
Right. They pinned it all on her. But, I mean, she's not the only one, for sure. But because she has such gravitas at the network, because she is really the avatar for liberal media, and because she is a very smart person who presents very well, she's very talented at what she does, she is able to spin these insane theories. So what she just said there was going to happen. She said the Supreme Court granted him this delay. Basically, they granted him a hearing period, knowing that they're not going to rule in his favor. What she's saying is that they know they're eventually going to rule that no, a president is not exempt from prosecution, but that they are purposefully delaying the trial until after he is president again. And once they rule that he can be prosecuted after leaving office, that will then prompt him to become the permanent president for life. Because once he finds out that he can and perhaps will be prosecuted after he leaves office, he will then take that as his cue to declare himself president for life because he doesn't want to go to jail. Now, you think of how insane that is and how many barriers there are to that. This is what people never understood, even with all the January 6th
the entire military
hysteria.
would have to line up behind it.
Everybody would have to line up behind it.
The
Trump
police forces, everybody would have to back it.
Trump couldn't even get his own vice president to cooperate on January 6th, right? It was delayed for a few hours because of what happened, but ultimately the system held together because for all of the faults and for all of the dysfunctions that come with our system, there are enough norms and guardrails to keep a thing like that from happening. So it's just insane, speculative fear-mongering on her part. And let's also be honest. If Trump does win and he serves another 4 years, there's going to be very little appetite to go after him after he leaves office. You're talking about 5 years from now. The country is going to be in a very, very different place by then. Right now, they're prosecuting him so that he doesn't become the president again. Once he becomes the president again, you think they're really going to go after him when he's, 83, 84 years old, a former president? That's not going to happen. It's ridiculous. It's ludicrous. She's just saying that to scare everybody into voting for Joe Biden. Not that the people watching her need any convincing in the first place, but that's the point of that. Just more unhinged fear-mongering.
Yeah. This is the question people never ask who would actually watch her and take her seriously. Okay, but how do you get from A to B to C? And again, this is just a commercial product. This is what her audience wants. They want to hear these dire, horrific scenarios of what's going to happen if he's going to become president for life. It's the end of democracy. I mean, they told us that the first time, right? It was going to be the end of democracy. It was going to be this fascist leader. And I think you could substantively argue that Joe Biden has governed in a much more fascistic way than Donald Trump did.
And much more destructive around the world, too.
They are currently appealing the principle that they have the right to interfere with tech companies and what speech tech companies allow. They are currently appealing a lower court decision in, what was it, Missouri? Was that Missouri? Yeah,
Missouri, yeah.
That it is de facto interference when the FBI says, hey, we got a list of accounts. Maybe you should look at those accounts. We're not saying you have to take them down, but, it might be a good idea. It is de facto government interference, even if we're not technically telling them they must. It's implied. It's implied. And I think that ruling did actually make that comparison to the mafia. So they're currently appealing it. So that is, as a journalist, that should terrify you. You should be speaking out about that, but Rachel Maddow never will.
Please clap.